we're going to have to rebuild within this wild, wild west of information flow some sort of curating function.
It's time for the Access of Easy podcast, the weekly technology digest that keeps you ahead of the curve.
We've got to maybe do something with the internet.
Brought to you by EasyDNS.com.
Somebody will say, oh, freedom of speech, freedom of speech. These are foolish people.
FireEye, the U.S. Treasury Department, the Department of Commerce, and pretty well every government agency under the sun has been hacked, and Russia has been blamed. Solarwinds has been hacked, and they're the attack vector for all of the above-mentioned hacks. Google falls out of bed with a Monday morning system-wide outage, and the antitrust hammer possibly falls on Facebook. Hey everybody, Mark Jeftovic here with another edition of the Access of Easy Weekly Digest. This is number 176, so the show notes for this week will be at accessofeasy.com/176. There almost wasn't a podcast version of the newsletter this week. I usually do these on Monday night. I just really wasn't feeling very well last night, and instead I just went to bed early. Did make me wonder how realistic it is for me to keep doing these every week. I do look at the stats. I see that people are listening to them, but I don't know if it's in enough numbers to keep it going. So if you do listen to this and you do like them, flip me an email, markjr@easydns.com. Let me know, or shoot me a DM on Twitter at StuntPope, and just let me know if you listen to these. If not, I just might let it die a quiet death and stick to the email version of the newsletter, which I do know people read and like, so I will always try to do those every week. However, having said all that, we're headed into the Christmas season. I will try to keep publishing over the Christmas holidays as best I can, but we may not be in a regular weekly schedule until the new year. All of that being said, last week's quote was, "The persistent trick of modern politics that appears to fool us repeatedly is to disguise economic and political interests as cultural movements." That was George Monbiot. It was suggested by Ann B., so a hat tip to her, and it was answered by someone via email who didn't want to post to the blog. So there you go. This week's quote is, "I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned." And I'm putting in a bonus prize this week, and then a bonus prize for people actually listening to this show. So you post the correct source of the quote to the show notes, accessofeasy.com/176. You get your next domain or web hosting renewal on us. The person who wins this week's contest, and anybody listening to this show who emails me the correct answer to this quote, I'm going to give you an audible.com promo code for the audiobook version of Charles Hugh Smith's latest book, A Hacker's Teleology. So my email address again, markjr@easydns.com. Don't search up the answer online. And for the audio listeners only, every single one of you who knows the quote can get Charles's new audiobook. All right, so let's get down to it. So this was kind of a strange newsletter to write because the outline completely changed within a space of 12 hours. I went to bed at whatever time it was the night before, and the newsletter kind of looked one way, and then I woke up the next morning and everything had changed. And so I think even these stories are out of order. But we start with FireEye and the U.S. Treasury Department being hacked. So FireEye is a big security consulting company, and their Red Team tools, which is their proprietary intrusion detection and testing toolkit, had been stolen. So they wrote a blog post up about that, and they attributed the breach to a highly skilled nation-state actor possessing world-class capabilities. And FireEye's clients include agencies at all levels of government and Fortune 500 companies globally. Quote, "The stolen Red Team tools, which amount to real-world malware, could be dangerous in the wrong hands," end quote. So what FireEye did to mitigate this is they released those toolkits, the source code for them on GitHub, which gives other security teams the ability to build out defenses against them. And the same tools were used to hack the US Treasury Department. So I was writing up about this, and the Washington Post put out an article that said, quote, a sophisticated hacking group backed by a foreign government stole information from the U.S. Treasury Department and a U.S. agency responsible for deciding the policy around the internet and telecommunications, according to people familiar with the matter, end quote. Sorry, that was Reuters ran that report. It was a one-sentence report. And then Washington Post seems to be the patient zero that started ascribing all of this to Russia. Always the Russians again. They looked at that Reuters story and they said Russian government hackers breached the Treasury and Commerce departments, and they attributed it to people familiar with the matter. The old people familiar with the matter trope. Anyway, so then the next morning, I realized that Solarwinds had been hacked, and they were the attack vector for all of the other hacks. So what happened is Solarwinds creates a network management suite known as Orion. And so companies and agencies all over the world use Orion to monitor their networks and take care of credential provisioning and all sorts of things. And so Orion was compromised by the hackers and used to deploy a malware known as STARBURST. And so when the clients updated their networks, they were all infected with STARBURST, and this gave these attackers access to all of the client networks. It's a real shit show, and it's, the security world is abuzz with it. And so the list of attack victims has gotten longer. They added Microsoft and the Department of Commerce, which I did mention just now, but I didn't know about Department of Commerce the night before. So the attack has been attributed to a threat actor called APT29, which is a code name used for the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, the SVR, but that was based on unnamed sources. Once again, FireEye did another report on the SolarWinds hack, and I did notice that they didn't attribute this hack, the SolarWinds hack, to APT29. They assigned a new code label to this threat actor of UNC 2452. And then overnight, I guess this would have been Sunday night, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, CISA, issued an emergency directive 21-01 about STARBURST and what everyone should do about it. And then, as if this wasn't enough, Monday morning, bright and early, 6:30 a.m., Google shits the bed with a system-wide global outage across all services. So you know how people love it when they lose access to their email. Gmail was down. Everything else was down. According to CNN, the Google services dashboard displayed red across all services. So in addition to Gmail, YouTube, Google Classroom, which affected online learning, the whole ball of wax. It was only about a 45-minute outage, and I haven't actually heard anything back on what that was. Microsoft reports malware campaign for adware injection. So Microsoft has issued a report on an ongoing malware campaign that injected bogus ads into multiple web browsers. This is separate from Microsoft being hacked by STARBURST, which also happened. In this case, they report that, quote, a persistent malware campaign has been actively distributing an evolved browser modifier malware at scale since at least May 2020. At its peak in August, the threat was observed on over 30,000 devices every day. The malware is designed to inject ads into search engine results pages. The threat affects multiple browsers: Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, Yandex browser, and Mozilla Firefox, exposing the attacker's intent to reach as many internet users as possible, end quote. The article has a screen grab of a browser with legit ads on one side and the injected ones using a malware strain called Adrazic on the other. And the way the attackers are monetizing this exploit is they hijack search terms and then they overlay the intended ads with their own ads, which route clicks to affiliate sites, and then they earn income from the traffic. The antitrust hammer falls on Facebook, maybe. So this was supposed to be the lead story for this week's edition, and this is where we are now, all the way down here on story number 4 or 5. As I wrote in the email newsletter, Facebook antitrust is so last week. Anyway, attorney generals from 46 U.S. states and the territory of Guam and the District of Columbia have come together to launch a massive antitrust suit against Facebook, alleging that the social media giant suppressed competition by acquiring challengers such as Instagram and WhatsApp. So everyone is talking about the breakup of the company or the impending breakup of the company, but we were talking about this on Axis of Easy Salon, and we don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case, and it could drag out for a long time. We do link to the actual lawsuit in the show notes page, and it alleges that, quote, the company bought competitors illegally and in a predatory manner in order to grow and preserve its market power, end quote. And the suit asks that Facebook be restrained from making any acquisitions in excess of $10 million without seeking prior approval. Subway UK's email CRM hacked and used to send malware. So it looks like Subway's UK division had their marketing email CRM hacked. Attackers used the system to send out fake order confirmation emails that contained a view details type link that led to an Excel spreadsheet infected with TrickBot. TrickBot is one of the more prevalent pieces of malware out there on the internet. Once infected, it scoops out saved login credentials from your web browser, your VNC applications, and spreads through your network, and it frequently lays the basis for a later ransomware attack. So Subway UK customers suspected a breach because some of them used canary emails. That's a best practice that we always recommend. That's get a domain that you use just for email marketing, just for logins with your vendor, turn on wildcard or catch-all email forwarding, and then use a unique email address for every vendor that you use. That's canary emails, very handy. Marketing CRMs frequently live outside the core networks of the companies that use them, and they're prone to being overlooked in maintenance and updates. We had our marketing CRM hacked a few years ago. It was 2015. I went back and looked, and fortunately it was just used to send an old-fashioned phishing email. It didn't contain malware. It was so badly done that nobody fell for it. So we got lucky. We detected it quickly because our automated RBL monitors realized that node had been added to an email block list pretty quickly. And that's a feature that we include in DomainSure. So head to domainsure.com, and it's a great tool for exactly that reason. Euro regulator hacked documents of Pfizer vaccine breach. So last week, Pfizer announced that the documents related to their COVID-19 vaccine had been illegally accessed when the European Medicines Agency, EMA, they're the regulator that oversees the use of medicines across the EU, was hacked. And I was wondering out loud if they were using SolarWinds Orion software. Anyway, the regulator says that the documents had been accessed included the regulatory approval filing from Pfizer and its European partner BioNTech. Important to note, neither Pfizer nor BioNTech themselves had been breached, just the EMA server. And in other pandemic-related news, a whistleblower in Florida was arrested for releasing non-official data about COVID infection rates and fatalities. Jesse Hirsch covered this over on MetaViews in his issue about the FireEye hack. He talks about this as well. He wrote that before all of the subsequent info came out. And also tangentially related to all this, a piece on Global News about the ethics or not of mandatory vaccinations in Ontario, which I guess will apply to everywhere. Magecart embedded in CSS files. So last week we reported how Magecart, which is that credit card stealing malware that targets Magento servers, was being embedded in innocuous looking social media sharing icons. Now comes the news that it's being hidden away in website style sheets as well. Quote, by hiding their payment info stealer script within CSS code, the skimmer's creators successfully bypassed detection by automated security scanners and avoided raising any flags when examined in manual security code audits, end quote. This new technique was discovered by Dutch security researchers at Sansec, who are the same people who found the one we talked about last week. They've found it in 3 online e-commerce stores so far. And in the Axis of Easy Salon number 34, Taking Back Our Capital and Agency, we discussed the issue of capital and agency in a world increasingly driven by black box algos and empty-headed policymakers. So that's it for this week. We are rolling down into Christmas. I hope everybody has as merry and jolly a Christmas as possible under the circumstances. We put up our tree last night, so it's nice to get the house looking kind of Christmassy. Stay healthy, stay sane, stay safe, and have a great Christmas. And I will publish what I can over the holidays, and we will see you all, if not next week, then in the new year. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Take care. Oh, show notes for this week's edition, axisofeasy.com/176.